Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. Police received an anonymous tip that has led to the closure of several cold case files surrounding the mysterious disappearance of many women and children. Following the tips, police searched the suspects' homes only to discover they had each committed extremely elaborate suicides. With their deaths solved, police are hard at work bringing closure to the victims' families. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio. Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King book club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, CM Alexander, alongside Joshua Kahn.
Hey, everybody.
And Benjamin Graham.
Fucking yikes, constant readers.
And today we are continuing our Patreon selection series of Full Dark, No Stars, Tony Horseman's pick, and we are covering Big Driver. And Josh is taking us through the discussion, and before he does, trigger warning.
Yeah.
I like it that you do it a fun way.
Yeah, I thought that might be nice.
We are going to need to find some moments for levity this episode.
Sure are.
By making fun of rape, right?
Right.
Yeah, no.
Let's let's get on the same page about one thing first and foremost.
Yes.
What are your feelings / relationships to the rape revenge genre? Because it's a very specific genre. Like, there's a revenge genre, and so much that rape revenge is its own genre.
I like rape revenge genre, but I don't watch it a lot because it's not fun. So
Yeah.
Like revenge movies are a lot of fun, and I've seen a couple, but it's not an area like I'll seek out movies. Like I haven't seen a lot of the more well-known, older, famous ones, just because again, today was not fun.
No. Not a fan. I know it's its own thing. I know famously Roger Ebert gave Last House on the Left a thumbs up. Like
He's insane.
Yeah, it's super crazy. Not a fan. I kind of bundle this genre along with like torture porn.
Yeah.
And I love horror that has to do with like monsters and shit. And even like some serial killer stuff, but like this is just, it's gross.
Ben, I'm sorry, they're called slashers.
Even slashers are different.
Yeah,
So,
no,
like-
for sure, they're fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're over the top. And this, especially this is not just that, but also a Lifetime original movie. So it's completely fucking artless. And
Oh, well, Josh is our resident Lifetime boy. He's
Are
the one
you?
we've
Did I know
established.
this?
We've
Yeah, I don't-
established on the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't remember
I-
which episode, so you can't prove me wrong.
Yeah,
but
Lifetime movies, Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
I don't know that I definitely didn't remember this about you.
They're
You're a
kind of,
fascinating person.
they're kind of
Josh.
my shit.
That's crazy.
I love bad art that doesn't know it's bad. I love the sincerity of bad art.
It's weird. This movie was made in what? We figured out.
2014 is when it came out.
Crazy. It has the sensibility of a fucking 90s made-for-TV movie.
I mean,
it's
it
the
is.
same
Well,
thing.
Not 90s, but it's a network made-for-TV movie from the Lifetime channel.
Yeah, I don't watch that network a lot. So Josh, as far as these types of movies go, how did this one rank? You know, production, look, all of that. Was it good?
It's definitely of the higher standards of a Lifetime movie. I mean, I'm sure the Stephen King name attached to it gave it the
Stephen King
extra
Lifetime
budget.
movie. So weird.
It's so strange. But here's the thing that I almost said this out loud out in your living room, but it was a weird thing to say. So I'm going to say it here where there's tens of listeners who will be my safe place to say this. I was excited that I was going to see Lifetime handle the scene because it is a network that is geared towards that audience that are most likely to have had shared experience. So I imagine there being a level of sensitivity in how you handle that, which I feel like I think we'll get to when we talk about the scene, but I was impressed with how Lifetime handled it, if I'm honest.
It was, not as graphic and visceral as most that I've seen.
It managed to be emotionally disgusting as opposed to the what you'd see from maybe a more disgusting movie of visually disgusting.
Which I'm going to take a controversial position here. Not horrible enough. Ben
almost
is grimacing the whole time we're talking.
unwatchable.
Oh, it was very hard to watch.
It is it's so long. It just keeps fucking going.
Can we also just explain, because we didn't do that at the top, shame on us, we're covering the story and the movie in one episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so as far as my relationship to the genre, I'm also a fan of the genre. Again, it's not something I watch a lot because it hurts to watch. It's interesting that you brought up the length of the scene and also the Last House on the Left getting a thumbs up. There is, when that movie came out, the remake, I was working at the movie store and they had an extended edition. And I didn't realize at the time that the extended edition is pretty much just the assault extended. And it was a nightmare. And every time people rented it, I told them.
You warned
I was
them.
like, the extended version is literally the extension of the only part you don't want to be more of. And the thing that I've always found fascinating with the genre itself is the high price of entry into what you have to make your protagonist go through versus what you then allow them to do as the revenge.
I guess maybe what Josh and I assume you and I kind of get out of it is that feeling of kind of justice and relief at having watched a character go through something terrible, and then you can totally root for them to just kill the shit out of that person later.
See, that all makes me feel so gross.
No, I totally get that reaction.
Yeah.
I 100% do. Spoiler alert, this is a rape revenge story. So let's start talking about the actual story. So this story follows Tessa Jean, who has written 12 books in a series called the Willow Grove Knitting Society, which is everything you'd hoped it'd be. 4 old ladies solving crimes, very murder, she wrote. Very Brindlewood Bay, if anybody's played that game. And she's made a living off of these books, and she takes 12 speaking engagements a year. She puts those paychecks to her retirement, and she gets a call and gets offered a speaking engagement for October. She already has one, but she decides to take it anyway.
Did you guys think that the part about her as she's thinking about taking this job, she's talking about her decision-making process for doing that, like how far away is it? If it's somewhere within driving distance, like 1 day's drive, she's more likely to do it because she just loves to be on the road, and maybe she was a truck driver in a past life or something. When I was first listening to the book, I was thinking Big Driver had to do with her love for being on the road. I'm like, okay, so
me too.
Something terrible is going to happen, and then she's going to have to like take on this persona of a truck driver and like drive around the country trying to get her revenge, and it never comes. Her driving like that never comes up again.
No, I thought the same thing. It's a weird setup.
Based on the poster art for the movie, which was my only information about what the story would be, that could have been it.
Yeah.
I told studio engineer Devin before we started the movie that it is one Tubi ass looking movie.
Yes.
I was shocked we were not watching this on Tubi.
Yes.
I really was.
Also, yes. No, this also, her talking about her travel plans, how she likes to only go short distances, partially has to do with her cat. What is his name? Fritzy? Yes, Fritzy. And the very personal relationship she has with her cat.
Her cat rules her life.
Her cat and her Tom are her best friends. In the movie, they try to add a best friend, but in the book, it's more just kind of a casual neighbor.
The obnoxious neighbor.
See, I read it as I kept expecting the neighbor to be a bigger part. A lot of this, I thought she would like discover something, or I just expected their relationship to mean anything, and it doesn't.
No.
Yeah, it was very straightforward.
Yeah.
The plot.
So she takes this job for the Books and Brown Bag Society, which is Ramona Norville, a character I assumed we would meet in this scene and never again.
Yeah.
Who is described as very butch. reminded me of kind of how Gertrude's described in Rose Matter, where she's just like stocky, what is the military haircut, and just ready to fuck you up.
Get shit done.
Yeah, that's like kind of her attitude.
Take charge, lady.
And so they've invited her out, and she greets her and talks about how everybody's so excited. They had a cancellation, so that they're going to be eternally grateful. And she's like, yeah, eternally grateful for like the next 3 days. It's fine.
She writes the check and then we're done.
And it's important to note that she likes Richard Widmark and that absolutely nothing weird happens. I'm being serious. They have a very regular interaction that gives you absolutely no clue that anything besides a lady paying her and then giving her directions is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think until we'll get to it, but I had a very oh no moment when her name was brought back up. I don't know if you guys did.
I'll tell you guys when my suspicions were raised.
Oh, okay. So after she does the speech, this little meet and greet, she signs autographs. Ramona had told her, like, oh, you came on the 84, that it's the worst highway in America. You might as well walk, it'd be faster. I know a shortcut. And if you know one thing about Tessa Jean, bitch loves a shortcut. She says it like 9 times how hyped she is for a shortcut. And yeah, it goes totally normal. She gets in the car and heads on her way.
Gets home. End of episode.
That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. So again, we finish this very pleasant getting paid conversation. Ramona leaves our book forever. Tess is taking this road that's now programmed into her TomTom, which she just calls Tom. And she turns a corner and there is wood with nails sticking out all over the street right around this bend. She doesn't have enough time, hits it. Tire goes flat and she is stranded.
Yeah, and Josh, you did forget all of the instances of the store was 90 minutes in her future and all of that kingly bullshit that you're like, fuck, this is all gonna go bad.
No, that's a really good point because there's a lot of foreshadowing.
Yeah,
she straight up says kind of in the beginning, oh, this was, hours before I was laying raped and nearly murdered.
In a drainage pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also where I became very suspicious of Ramona.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, there's, you tell her to go on the shortcut. It's secluded. And there happens to be a bunch of boards with nails in the road. You wouldn't do that on a busy highway because people would see you. But then I immediately talked myself out of her being involved because I'm like, oh, but there'd be a trail of
because
her
it's
inviting
insane.
her. Well, no, her inviting her to speak. Like there'd be a connection. You, as a murderer or accomplice, you wouldn't want to set up someone that can be traced back to you so easily through all this like paperwork and email chain and publishers.
Which I also think lends credence to this being later we kind of find out that Ramona had a feeling of desperation about doing this. And so I think this is the first time she's done it in this fashion. And because it's so risky to be that connected.
And that moment later in the book is so brief.
Yeah.
I missed it until the movie.
We get so little of the villains of the movie to the point where for a majority of the book, I was like, is any of this real?
Yes.
Not necessarily the crime that happened to her, but the connections that she starts making. We'll get to it, but basically she starts making shit up off the top of her head with these connections. And then as she goes about investigating it, she finds out that she's right, which is weird.
When you lay it all out like that, it sounds ridiculous.
When you combine it with something else that is going to start happening, it's kind of weird.
Well, and you put that with she's also written 12 murder mystery books.
Yeah.
So
she's
creating connections isn't...
Yeah.
It's in her state of mind, the way that he writes her. It's like...
It feels random.
Is Ramona actually a part of this, or is she delusional.
Right.
And then no, she was right. We'll get to it.
Yeah. So, okay, we're at she's been stranded at this store. There's these boards in the street. She's, lamenting her situation. And this is where something interesting starts. She starts the convention that continues for a while, which is, if this were a horror movie, this would happen, which the first one is her cell phone would have no service, and it doesn't. But it escalates from this point. It becomes a recurring motif of, if this were a movie, this would happen. What did you guys think of that?
So fucked up because as you guys know, I listen to true crime a lot. And so I'm paranoid that I'm always going to be like raped and murdered.
Yes.
So much so that I don't even, like, if I open my front door to, let the sunlight in, I'll lock my screen door. And then if I'm not in the same room as that flimsy screen door, I'll shut my door and lock it and deadbolt it.
You're a smart person.
So
You're just a safe person.
Yeah, this feeds into fear, being a woman specifically, but I'm sure men and others have this fear as well. But just of kind of that underlying constant anxiety that you're not always safe in a situation.
And it's midday, which was a thing I continually forgot as we get into this. It's movie, like 1 p.m.
Yeah, the movie, it was daylight, and I was like, wait, isn't it night when this happens?
The story is so dark that every scene, I was like, yeah, it's midnight.
Yeah.
And throughout the story, she keeps looking at the clock and being like, oh, fuck, it's only like 10:15.
Yeah.
One other thing before we move on, this portion of the book, because the book kind of goes through a couple different modes, in my opinion. And in this portion, with her on the side of the road and her meeting our antagonist, it reminded me so much of something else we have read for the podcast. Best New Fiction, I believe is what it was called. The short story from Joe Hill. It reminded me, it's about this writer and her coming across this, like, when this guy comes along. So what happens is her tire is flat. And first there's a red herring drives by. The zombie bakers who I kept being like, they're going to factor into this. Nope.
I thought they were bakers.
No, they're a band.
They're a band, I found out.
Dang it, I thought they were bakers too.
But after they drive by, a big truck with Bondo around the headlights comes up, and this enormous dude climbs out, says, "Can I help you?" And there's this whole long scene of just us as the readers knowing how much danger she is in, that she's out here alone without cell service. He's enormous, and we have been told, is a pretty small lady. And all of this, it kept reminding me of that short story of that dude being out in this cabin in the woods, and there are these people who are just like, you can sense
the siblings.
Yeah, you can sense something.
It's your instincts,
wrong.
your gut telling you. This part coming up that we're getting into, I messaged you guys in our chat. There are some stories and even some podcasts I listen to that are spooky or upsetting enough when I'm getting ready for work in the morning and it's all like dark outside and I'm by myself. I just can't. I have to pause it because I'm like, no, I need to hear these things when there are other people around me and I'm in the world, not isolated. And this scene coming up is one I'm like, nah, I'm gonna listen to this on the way to work when I can scream at like my road rage and be distracted.
It's the suspense is also, it's that ticking clock of, we as the reader know it's happening, but we're waiting for what the clue is for her. And it turns out it's by doing him a favor. He doesn't close his door all the way, so she goes over to shut his door so his dome light doesn't drain his battery. And when she looks in the bed of his truck, she sees white boards with nails sticking out, just like the ones that were in the road. And when she turns around, he is already right there and
he says, how about instead of changing your tire, I fuck you?
Yep.
Or I screw you in Lifetime.
Yeah. And then punches her in the face.
Not the same impact, but still pretty gross.
Yeah. I held my breath in the movie when that line
Don't they get one fuck?
I would have. That would have been the time to use it.
Yeah.
That would have been horrifying.
just because I need to delay the amount of time before we talk about the next scene, can we talk about the performances in the movie?
Sure. Yeah.
They suck. I am happy that a cast full of actors got paid to make a movie, but they could have made a different one. Am I alone on this?
I can't really judge it because it's a Lifetime movie, and I think they have a certain feel, and to me, it felt like those feel, which is why I don't typically watch them.
Yeah, I guess if the subject matter deserves more talent than this, the performances. I hated the music. I can say shot.
That.
Oh my god!
The music is terrible.
You know, somebody composed that, or they purchased me. Like somebody worked on that. I'm not trying to shit on someone's work. It just tonally, I didn't like it for the movie because it was too like do. I'm getting ready for work. Everything's fine. It just wasn't. It didn't do anything to enhance the movie or the performances.
So yeah, the beginning scene is scored like a romantic comedy, and then the tense scenes are scored with the overblown yet still treacly, just like
I'd have preferred it not been done by Lifetime.
Yeah.
So I get that, but
so would you say you have more of a problem with the Tess or the Lester casting?
I mean, Tess is perfectly serviceable. She's fine.
You know who I kept wanting it to be? Carrie Weir from Gina Lemke.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know I want her.
Yeah,
to be
of
her
course
for
you do.
other, but like it's just something about like her like strong facial structure reminds me of the other actress, and I just wanted it to be her.
I don't know my big problem is so much of her stuff is her she does not sell all the Alone stuff. But
we'll talk about that. Like, I have an idea. Actually,
sure. But so much of her struggle is internal, and they cover that by having her wander around and mumble to herself. And it's
you've got a valid criticism. Yes.
And then he is completely forgettable, role, not a threat,
not big enough.
Which I guess could be,
okay.
Should a rapist supposed to be? It could be anyone,
That's
True Detective season 1, the bad guy in
that's
that.
so good.
Yeah.
He also he's also in a few other things. He's in Barry. That actor has the problem is again not to shit on the actor who is in this. I'm sure he did the best he could, but the guy I'm thinking of. Like, I would have cast him in that because he carries a presence with him that
his aura.
Yes, he can put you in a state of anxiety and discomfort without
just by
doing
being
anything.
There.
And that's kind of what, to your point, Ben, I think like that's what this story needed cinematically.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I felt Lester didn't quite wear the truck the way I wanted him to.
Not at all, yeah.
Well, and Al's supposed to be bigger than Lester. I know that's not it's a weird deal to get hung up on, but I was a little disappointed that Al was smaller, rougher.
When Lester got out of the truck, I said out loud, that guy's not that big.
Yeah.
Like, I want him to be, the mountain from Game of Thrones.
Yes, exactly. All right, we've stalled long enough. She gets punched in the face, and the next thing she knows, she wakes up to being raped.
She notices he has a ring on his hand too, which will come up in the book,
and a very specific hat.
Yeah.
Yes, with like a bleach stain on it. Yeah. It looks like a uniform.
King writes a rape scene to be very unpleasant and unsettling.
It sucks to read.
Just the way she describes, the experiences she's having, and it lasts for a very long time.
Yeah,
at one point she's like, she comes to and she begs him to stop. No more, and he says lots more, which sucks.
And the period, like, it's choking her, hitting her, that she has these gaps in time that she's completely losing. The one time when she wakes up and he's dancing.
This is the scariest part of the book, in my opinion. It is the part that made me go, okay, this movie is going to be a hard watch, but in the right hands could be a very
compelling,
scary and
yeah.
compelling movie, because she's coming to and like blacking out, and this one time she comes to, and the way it's described, the sun's going down and she's describing it like the windows looking on fire, and him capering around, at least shirtless, and like singing, and it being monstrous and terrifying. In my head, David Lynch. Like David Lynch directing this scene, it would be the scariest fucking thing you've ever seen on film. But this, it's almost comical because of the pad ADR and
the tone.
It sounded like the direction that actor got was just have fun with it. And like, that's not going to get you an emotional response.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just winging it, it gave me just dance around and sing the song.
It wasn't threatening in the movie. In the book, it was threatening. In the movie, it's silly.
The feeling, it doesn't come from like the scariness to me is how much fun this guy's having.
Yeah, how inappropriate that is
how
for
light
the
this
setting.
is.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that
Yeah.
from the way it was visually. The next time she comes to, he's carrying her in a filthy creek, and he dumps her body in this drainage pipe.
Oh, I hate this
And
so much.
The way she describes pretending to be dead.
He even pinches her nipple to make sure she's dead, to see if she reacts, and it my body and brain was like, ugh. But then as soon as King was like, but she was wearing a bra, so it wasn't like, I mean, it sucked, but it wasn't horrible. I was like, oh, thank God. I just did it now. Like, you just sort of protect
Will
your...
you quit twisting your nipples during the show, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
But this sounds so weird. I was kind of hoping for that moment in the lifetime. I was sad they chickened out. He gives her like a last grope. And
No, he...
did he? Oh, I missed it.
You must have been making notes.
I must have made a
because
note.
he definitely
Okay.
gives a
It's
twist.
just like
It all sucks.
the willpower that she is using to feign death for survival.
It tells you how much pain and suffering she's experienced, that she can, like you said, the willpower to force herself not to react to that, because that's nothing compared to,
This part could have branched off and turned this story into an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, and I wouldn't have been surprised.
Not familiar.
No.
Lovecraft?
No. Who wrote... The audience, pretend I knew who wrote An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Spoiler alert
him.
for a 100-year-old fucking short story. It's about a guy, he's being led to a bridge to be hung by his neck. They throw him over the edge, and as he's being thrown off this bridge, the rope around his neck breaks, and he falls into the river, and the whole story is him escaping from these people who are trying to kill him. And the story ends with him hitting the end of the rope and it not breaking, and he was dead the whole time.
Got it.
Spoiler alert.
Jacob's Ladder.
It's a real Jacob's Ladder. But yeah, I could have been like, because she's laying there and being like, I don't know, maybe I am dead.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And the time that she's sure he's standing out there, so she doesn't move for a time she can't know, because there's no way to judge time.
I really like this part, the way it's described, because she can see sort of that circle of landscape and light at the end of the tunnel, but she can't see like anything happening. So the fact that she can't see stuff happening makes it more scary. Like he might just be right there.
And a detail they use a little bit in the movie, but not the way I was hoping, the sound of the truck. Because that's her final all clear. When she hears that truck start up and drive away, she's sure it's finally safe to move. And she makes some discoveries. What does she find along her journey back?
She finds several corpses of other women who presumably, we assume, have met a similar fate to her, except she happens to be alive. It's horribly disgusting, just how she stumbles upon the corpses.
It is also one of the 2 points in the movie that made me go, oh, that's an interesting shot.
I wish I would have enjoyed all of that scene. Because in the movie, it's like a shot above, even though that would be impossible. She's climbing underground, and she climbs over the bodies. But then the last body is just a straight up skeleton. And I was like, oh, you were so close. There wouldn't be a full just bare skeleton out here.
It's been doing it for a long time. Animals got at her. I don't
But
know.
no, I'm sure
It looked like a skeleton.
It
from
does
the
look like
Halloween store.
it does look like a Spirit Halloween
right.
skeleton. Yes.
It was a fully perfectly still connected but bare skeleton.
Also, cinematically, just very. Here's some dead bodies.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no.
But I like that even like she is seeing them and even at points crawling on them, putting hands on them, but she does not pause to take it in. I think is neat in a way.
Yeah, the way she crawls over them is the most interesting part of that scene visually. But yeah, it's what a horror that scene could have been. And
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, maybe doing that would take away from, like, maybe we want to keep the focus on the horror of her rape. So that's sort of downplayed.
Yeah. Then she finds herself wandering in circles around the store. She walks back, finds a carpet remnant because it's October. It's not insanely cold, but it's chilly. And she realizes that at a certain point she has to stop herself from wandering, realizes that she's been looking for her car and just circling for God knows how long. The loss of time, because there are times where she fades in and out after leaving and not knowing how long she's been walking on the road later. It's just so strange how you cannot keep a frame of how long this is taking.
And it is all so fucking tense. From here to the stagger in. No, from here until she meets Manuel? What was that his name?
Oh, the driver.
The limo driver.
Yeah.
Every single page, I was like, when's the other shoe drop?
Yep.
Something, either he'll be back or she will meet someone else who is just as bad or in cahoot. I kept waiting for a twist. And there is a twist, but it's so,
I don't know though. I think it's cool that the reader is made to feel her fear and anxiety about what might possibly happen, and it doesn't.
Hiding from every vehicle, even though she knows the sound of the truck is burned into her. She knows by sound it's not, but the fact that it's someone is so scary. She needs to get off the road.
I think I can tell you exactly why I kept expecting a twist again, because I was thinking about Best New Horror, which I just remembered is the actual name of that story.
That's what it is. Yes.
Where I expected her to like think she came to safety, and then it turns into this whole, the
wandered into the den.
Yeah, that
Texas
wouldn't be,
Chainsaw
that
Massacre
wouldn't be
thing.
unusual for a revenge. Yeah.
And the reason I thought that also was the fucking zombie bakers.
Oh.
Because when she was on the road before Lester comes, this van with zombie bakers painted on the side drives by, and she tells him, and he says, he gets a look on his face like, the zombie bakers drove by and they just left you here? Huh. I swore he was in, like, they were people he knew.
Oh.
That I thought that once she got to the roadhouse, that she would find out that he was like the front man of this band, that he was going to meet them.
Yeah.
And then it would turn into a whole like green room thing.
True crime has ruined this for me, because as soon as he started asking her those questions, it's like, oh, he's making sure that there are no witnesses.
Okay.
Because if somebody saw her on the road and the cops are asking around looking for her, someone might say, oh yeah, I saw her broken down there.
Gotcha.
We said we'd call for help and whatever. Yeah. So she makes her way to the Stagger Inn. At this point, it's like right before she comes along the Stagger Inn that she has the conversation with herself. That is, Tess, you have to stop blinking in and out of consciousness. We have to get our shit together. Let's do this. And then she turns the corner and the Stagger Inn is there. And for a brief second, you think, people, great. And then it starts she goes down the shame rabbit hole, which I'm glad that we explore that, because it's a very important part of what happens after these situations. Wasn't expecting it this early, as far as when I was expecting the first chance of getting help rushing to that, but being
that would override
the way she talks herself out of it because of the press, because of all of those shame reasons.
Yeah, to have to relive something like that, to even talk about it, to report it is fucking horrible. And it's hard to be traumatized and then want to share that with people and experience it again. Yeah. You just want to kind of withdraw and recover.
Yeah, it just feels, I mean, the counterintuitive thing of she's been alone and scared this whole time, that feeling of, oh, if she just gets to a bunch of people, she'll be safe. And then that turning out to be the thing that makes her feel even less safe.
It's I don't know. I like the way King kind of writes that mindset. Mm-hmm.
So we get to the gash and
what?
Finally, we get to the gas and dash, and she recalls, because she doesn't have her wallet and she has nothing.
God. Gash
but
and
yeah,
dash.
I know.
It's so inappropriate.
It is not the story to be making that joke. Thank you.
In a different story, we would have left that.
In a different story, that'd be the episode title. But not this one.
Not this one.
Yikes.
Oh, you have to laugh.
Yeah, well.
Or cry.
So she arrives to the gas and dash and decides the only thing she can do is she's not going to call 911. She's going to go home. Thankfully, she has the number memorized for the limo service she uses sometimes for events in town. Is that?
No, she has to call the operator.
Oh, that's right.
And go through all that stuff.
She has her
pay
count. They have her credit card on file.
That's right.
Since she doesn't have her purse or her keys or her underwear or her bottoms.
Yeah, Jesus. And she goes through this process of
which is also very tense.
She hiding from the kids, the kids, like the 20-somethings that come in to buy beer. She ducks around behind the building. Again, isolating herself and putting herself in a vulnerable place.
Yeah, because this guy just coming to get beer, like exuberantly jumps out of his truck and just a man is making noise nearby is like, oh shit.
Yeah. So she writes the number for the limo company in the dirt on the phone. That's right. I remember now. And eventually the limo service comes and we meet, Miguel?
Yeah, we get a lot here about not just, what the victim's mindset right after something like that happens and sort of how they deal with it, but also what other people would perceive of someone who looks like they were just attacked, specifically a woman.
Because she has also just seen herself for the first time. We forgot to mention that. And should we recap the damage that she sees?
It's just bad.
I mean, like broken, thinks her nose is broken, both black eyes, cut in the head. Her throat is
red and
yeah. It's very, there's no hiding it. Not a single bit. And what did you guys think of her interaction with the limo driver?
It just made me sad. This whole, it all just makes me sad because just, I don't know, the all the parts about like, oh, he's going to make some comment about, my boyfriend and like judge me on that, or he's going to ask if I need to go to the hospital or something. And he doesn't do any of that.
It's the resigned fact that she's like, oh, this guy has seen this a million times.
And that's why he doesn't ask her those questions. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, that's normal and okay.
Yeah. It is a bummer. No surprise. This is a bummer of a story.
That the closest he comes is saying like, do you want me to stop to pick up anything? Basically, he talks around it real quick.
I don't know. The biggest thought I had at this part of the story was her getting into the limo and me going, there's fucking how much of this story left? How is this the first quarter of the book?
Yeah.
Where does it go from here? Honestly,
go where you expected?
It was... I don't know. It's funny. Sam, earlier you said this plot is pretty straightforward. And it is, despite the fact that there's this weird twist coming up. Like, I kept expecting a bigger twist than there was. Does that make sense?
I kind of, because it's a Stephen King story, yes.
I guess I didn't, because I'm thinking of this, I'm comparing it to different seasons.
Yeah.
Because that's the last thing like this we read on our podcast. And so I'm anticipating no like craziness, just kind of straightforward. No mysticism, monsters, things like that.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily thinking of like supernatural elements, but I don't know. I was expecting it's my problem I already went over. It's the twists that do come are so like, oh, I guess that she just figures that out. And then you think, oh, she's going to go get revenge. And then she does. And you go, okay, cool.
But that's what all of most
That's the
revenge
genre.
movie. Yeah, that's just
Okay.
that's the formula.
Which it also makes
then he
sense
did
saying that it's not really your genre.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. So she gets home, locks all of her doors, windows, gets a gun that she bought a few years ago, takes a shower, one of about 30 showers she'll take in the next 24 hours.
Describing the way that it feels to
Ugh.
have the water hit her body, and even when she goes to the bathroom, the pain of that, all very upsetting.
Yeah. It's a painful story to read for sure. This is where the writer brain starts kicking in, because she's been going through this conversation with herself about how she doesn't want this to ever end up in the papers. I love that they don't sell it in the movie quite as well, but the moment where she decides, yeah, but what's in it for me? Like, I owe it to those bodies I found, which I was really glad that she kept bringing that up, because I was in the part of me that has the luxury of being a reader, reading a fictional character, judging their opinion on something.
Yeah, putting the responsibility on her shoulders.
Yeah, and just saying like, no, I'm not going to forget about them, but I'm going to handle me first. And it goes from there. So she decides first thing she needs to come up with a cover story. She decides that she tripped over her cat and fell down the stairs. She even gets a meat tenderizer and breaks paint off of the banister so that when her neighbor sees, she can point at it and see right there.
This part is supposed to set her up as like, we read this and we're supposed to be like, oh, she's like this mastermind that she's going to use her mystery writing skills to set up this situation where she can go and kill the guy that raped her and get away with it. But she's not.
She's bad
she
at
makes
it.
so many, like, she goes, and she even mentions it herself. Like, she gets herself into these situations, and then immediately when it's go time, she's like, oh, I didn't think this through at all.
Yeah.
I credit all that back to when she gets home and she's like checking herself. She diagnoses herself with a concussion. And it's like goes through all the things that could be happening. And I just attribute everything that happens from this point on.
That makes sense.
Is that she thinks she's thinking it through until reality happens. Yeah, she's just concussed the whole time.
See, that kind of ties into what I think the book does really well and the movie fucks up super bad is her mental state is not right.
Yeah.
Like after this, she starts thinking of herself as the other Tess, the new Tess. And yeah, she has this, she keeps saying, oh, I am not insane. I am making my choices sanely, but also my cat's talking to me. Which I think is this really cool part of the book where she has these, she says that it's a long holdover from her writing as she speaks to herself in other voices to help her write. But there's this, she starts thinking to herself through her cat, through her GPS, and through all of this. And you're like, okay, she's talking to herself. But then every once in a while, she's like, one of them will say something. And she's like, that's not my voice.
Yeah, I love that part.
And it makes you go,
the voice they have.
How badly is her psyche after this? Obviously, it would be cause great harm. So how reliable is this narration? In the movie, she just sees the old lady ghosts and talks to throughout the entire thing. It really has no bearing
Best
on
character in the movie.
Doreen is savage as
absolutely.
fuck.
She brought a levity that the movie didn't need, but I needed to get through it because it was long.
So, okay, this is my solution to the movie dropping the ball in this area. What I wanted was there are parts where she is talking these ideas over out loud. There are times we've seen her writing and we see the what looks like ghost women in the window. What I wanted was for it to start off more subtle, like she's writing, she's having these conversations. The four women are sitting around a table in the background out of focus, and they're responding to her, or they are bouncing off the ideas that she is, and she's responding to them. And then as it goes, bringing Doreen more and more to that forefront as the other things. Like when the GPS says, I don't like it here at one point, like there are those little things. If that would have built
more style, you mean?
And it would have taken it off that actress's plate of having to do those scenes that didn't land well of her doing an out loud list. No, give that to these four women that she is the god of and give it to us that way.
I did like that they used that to show cinematically her dialogue, but yeah, they could have done it better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it goes back and forth because in the movie, some scenes she will talk to Doreen or whatever, but then in other scenes it's just voiceover, and then sometimes she's speaking her inner monologue out loud. Well, it's not good.
Okay. One of the most insane scenes in the movie is her making the phone call in the store.
Yeah, that was weird.
I was very confused.
I thought it was a dream. Because we just had like those weird. I liked the way they did the shame flashbacks of letting us visualize those. And I thought this was that of her having to report it. And the gimmick was that it kept being a bunch of people around hearing the story and hearing her share it. And that's how it was going to get to her. And then it adds up to nothing. It adds up that she called herself and left a voicemail, which is better than what I thought. Which is because after she hangs up, she calls 911 and then hangs up. And I thought that full thing had been a rehearsal for what she was going to say to 911.
Oh, that's what I thought until literally just now.
Until I heard it later, I thought so too. That what the scenes of her in her house working through this, and Ben, as you said, having these various visually, speaking of the movie, different moments to show that. What it reminded me of, because it's the vehicle through which they decided to produce this, I believe, is one of those like Lifetime or Hallmark movies where this like manic older woman is like getting her groove back, basically.
Yeah.
She had the energy and delivery of someone who's, who went through something like and is gonna find love here in a moment.
She's the stereotypes or the archetypes of old lady getting her groove back and omniscient angel in A Christmas Story.
Yes,
like those are.
Yeah, that's
she
what this
fills
movie
those roles.
Feels like.
Yeah, you put this movie at Christmas and.
Oh yeah.
So after all this planning, she pulls the wool over Patsy's eyes. This whole story, she gets a phone call from the Stagger Inn, which makes her go dead cold.
In the story, she is falling asleep when the phone call comes in, and they leave a message as she falls asleep. And then she wakes up and she's like puttering around the house. I expected her to go to the phone and like hit play and it be the giant.
Ooh.
I thought it was going to be the mom like leaving a message to pretend like, oh, thanks for, I don't know, like
gotcha.
Trying to cover her tracks.
Yeah, something. Because it had me, I was thinking Lizzie's story,
Yeah.
But it's not. It's just a lady from the Stagger Inn who's like, hey, we have your car and some of your stuff. So come in, please.
They make a big deal about that it being a policy of the place that people can just leave their cars and keys.
Also, they make a really big deal about stuff with quotes around it. It's just the
just her
GPS.
tom-tom. Yeah.
I didn't get that.
I think the only thing I can think that makes sense is that Betsy says they're not allowed to do that. So maybe she said stuff.
Oh, okay.
But that even then, that feels like I'm thinking a level further than it needs.
Thinking harder than the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she takes a cab and goes to the Stagger Inn and meets Betsy. What did you guys think of Betsy and our interaction with her?
I'm inclined to like Betsy.
Yeah.
She's...
How would you describe her?
Like, too cool to be my friend, probably.
She gave me very Cynthia Smith vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of two-tone hair, she has
chick.
2 different colored eyes.
Yes.
And she just works in this tough roadhouse and is cool. And I thought for sure this woman is not surviving this story.
Oh, God, I thought she was going to leave the story again forever. I didn't think many characters would recur in this story as they do.
No, I thought because she goes and she finds her car, she pays a cab and tells a cab driver to wait until she comes back out in case she has to fight in this roadside bar. But instead she goes in, she has a talk, and she gets her TomTom because she left it in the car and they're expensive or whatever.
And signs an autograph for Betsy's grandma.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to see her, be in the papers for any reasons, like she was just thinking about having an abusive partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But as she's leaving, she has this idea of like, oh, wait, this guy might be from around here. So she asks, hey, a guy helped me with my abusive partner that I left last night that did all this to my face. A really big guy with a big red ring. And she knows
cap,
who it is. She says, that's Big Driver. They said it. Hooray.
Yeah, Big Driver is not Tess.
Was he big or really big?
Yeah, she says really big.
Big Driver's not Tess.
So I was like, oh, this lady knows this murderer because he's a local. She's going to get caught up. She's going to end up like half the cast of Rose Matter.
Right,
See, I just not being familiar with rape revenge movies. You had all these expectations.
I don't know all the tropes.
It's so cut and dry. It's the rape revenge genre is so A to B to C. That's crazy.
Better than cut and dry.
Yeah, that's a good call. So she gets back into her car, and this is what we've been kind of talking around her conversation with Tom, where she decides that Ramona set all this up. So
it comes so out of left field. I was like, there's no way this is real.
The clues are, they make sense. She's the one who set me on this path. The red flag was like, oh no, she's going to kill an innocent woman. My full expectation with her hearing all these voices, all this, was that she was going to make a lot of bad decisions. Yep. And so I assumed Ramona was going to be innocent.
Which honestly, I'm glad isn't where it goes. Because like, what does that story say? That this woman is brutalized, but then she turns out to be the bad person, killing a bunch of innocents. But yeah, that is what I expected.
But thank God we have Google. And she goes home and through Google discovers that Ramona was married at one point, has 2 kids, Lester and Al.
Really putting a lot of evidence on her computer.
Ramona is now single because their father killed himself. And
she has a girlfriend.
Oh, that's right. She has a girlfriend in the book. Yeah. And we
haven't even mentioned that in the movie she's played by Ann Dowd.
Ann Dowd.
That rules.
It is. I just don't. I kind of expect Ann Dowd to be a little evil whenever I see her in things.
Yeah.
So, the husband/father killed himself years earlier, and in the paper it says like some difficulty with their
small
son.
Town paper for you.
Yeah. It's
so implying that the family has a history of potential, criminal something or other.
And so she decides, all right, well, a great way to find out if Ramona had anything to do with it is just show up at her house. The face she makes when she sees me will be all the information I need.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Now, this is, I'm really glad they fixed this problem in the movie, because in the book it read strange to me, because Betsy also gave her the Red Hawk trucking information. So she searched that, and there's a picture of her rapist in front of his truck, smiling like a proud papa, is what it says. And I presume that also meant she saw a photo of Al, because they're both on the website.
Right.
Oh, yeah, but when he pulls in, he's a little bit in disguise.
It's in the book, because of I don't know, just the way I was envisioning it, it felt like she had a second, whereas the way it's portrayed in the movie does a very good job of it not. She doesn't have a second to get a clear look by the way she approaches it. So it kind of fixed that for me a little. So she's seen photos now of the whole family and decides that she's going to take her revenge and pay Ramona a visit. What did you guys think about her visit to Ramona's house.
Again, she has not seen pictures of the family together.
That's true.
She has just seen pictures of two people. And she's like, yeah, no, they are definitely related. And also my cat told me. So like I seem sane.
And she went to Blockbuster and rented Kiss of Death and A Courageous Woman.
We gotta watch that movie.
Yeah, we gotta watch Kiss of Death.
In the movie, they show the scene of Richard Widmark pushing a lady in a wheelchair down the stairs, and it looks insane. So we gotta watch that movie.
I did like this scene between them because she knocks on the door and Ramona opens it, and it's, she can see the surprise in her face that she's standing there before her, and she pulls the gun and she's like basically just telling her, you better not scream, better not try anything. I need you to answer some questions for me. And I was like, of course King did this. Ramona decides to play it this way. She's going to insult the woman holding a gun on her by calling her a bad writer. It's like, all right.
Well, and she doesn't give up the ruse. Like in the movie, she kind of throws it away. Like she gives it away pretty obvious. But in the story, she's saying like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, she said eventually.
She does, but it doesn't happen until Tess sees her diamond earrings that she was wearing during the reading and during the assault that went missing in a dish just like on the TV. And at that moment, they both notice it, and there is a complete tone change where it's like, all right. Because that whole time, I think, Ben, you might have been on the same page as me of what if she's innocent because she's claiming she is, and getting that proof positive piece of evidence.
I wish I could have read it from your guys' perspective, because it's like, no way he's going to plant the boards there, not knowing for sure the person he wants to hit those is going to hit those. Otherwise, you got a problem.
See, I assumed that it would be too random, like the timing wise, like that anybody could be driving at any time. And so that's where my skepticism of it being a bait was.
Well, I think the movie does do a good job of showing it is way more secluded than it seems in the book. This route she takes is like it's very scenic, all the back roads.
See, I guess that threw me off as well, because Ramona seems just like a city librarian, or a small town librarian. We're given no hints that she's strange at all, unless you count the fact that she's butch, which the character specifically is like, well, that kind of points away from her being part of this, because gay people usually aren't, murderers. It's just, it comes out of nowhere. It's, I don't know. And at no part did I feel like it wasn't hinted at enough to make it a good twist for me. It's just like, oh, okay.
The detective stripes weren't quite there for you to piece it together.
The detective stripes?
Yeah, like the connections of solving the mystery that led her to didn't find it. Much like how I hated the Nazi hunters in Apt Pupil, that like just third act, these people come in who know everything, who know the exact questions to ask, and that it felt like they showed up and knew everything, and I felt I didn't like that super cop out of nowhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the situation turns tense after the earrings are discovered. Tess and Ramona get into a fight. They fight over the gun. Ramona gets it, pulls the trigger. Nothing. Because you don't leave a live round in the chamber. And so Tess gets it back, and in the moment of surprise, takes a knife and stabs her in the gut.
That was really satisfying in the movie.
Yeah.
I will say that. It was a good stab. Because Tess's reactions in the movie when she's encountering people are pretty quick, except for the last.
Well, and this is also, and I like that change also, personally. So let's talk about, what did you guys think of when Ramona lets the mask drop, how she justifies herself?
Oh, this is where I kind of missed you were talking earlier about how she was basically excusing, well, she insulted Tess and was like, yeah, I picked you because you're a whore and deserve this, basically. It's like really over the top. And I don't know if the line is the same, but in the movie she says, I could see the signs. So, telling us that her son must have some behavior that cues her into they're going to want to kill soon. And so she serves them up victims.
We're not given enough motivation, in my opinion. It's all this stuff is hinted at. I would have liked
You wanted an overbearing mother flashback scene? No, I'm not like that, but you know what I mean? Like something to show us
some
the
evidence,
power she has in this family.
Yeah, some hard evidence of what they were doing and why. And I get that that's not necessary for the story. I have said in the past how much I like ambiguity, but it just doesn't work here for me.
Sure.
I think that's another trope too. It's sort of senseless.
Yeah,
it's like I did it because I wanted to.
I don't like that. That feels gross.
It is.
Yeah. I get that's the point, but
but you don't want to go on that journey.
No, not at all.
So Tess, because she has thought all this through and is not leaving evidence, decides to go upstairs and sit down at Ramona's computer, which isn't password protected, which is great.
Yeah.
And looks up all of the family info, finds both kids' addresses. Good thing they live right down the street from each other, as it turns out.
And thank God she can enter these murder addresses into her GPS in her car.
That'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
So
oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Do you think it's because her characters are like a knitting society, and so they're probably not solving crimes? They're probably a little more traditional in how they solve crimes, so she doesn't always have to think of the electronic trail in real life.
That's really funny.
She's like living in a modern age, solving crimes like her old ladies do.
If I put it in my GPS, they'll never know because I didn't write the address down. So she pulls up to Al's house, and the motion light scared me. It scared you, Kathy.
I hated it. Yeah, I was like, no.
Oh God, that was so scary. Because she pulls down, and the grass is tall. So when the light goes on, she's like realizes that, oh my God, he'll see that someone's been here. Oh, I skipped over it. She did go down to like a truck stop and watched him go in and buy alcohol and whatever. So she's had eyes on him. And who wants to describe the attack on Al?
Yeah. Okay. In the book, she drives her car around the side of the house, and there's a big semi parked there that she hides behind. She pulls out her gun and she's waiting, and she is running through, well, what if he comes back? If I hear it now, he'll see the light. Oh, deer probably trip it all the time. It'll be fine. And the whole time there's a dog barking, and you're like, that's going to be bad news. But finally the light goes off, and she's sitting there waiting, and she has this thought, what if he's headed out of town? What if he's leaving? And it doesn't matter. I've come too far. I will wait here until hell freezes over. Until she hears the sound, the truck drives up, and she's like, I have to time this perfectly. I have to get out and charge him. I can't give him a second to react. So as he's parking and opening the door, she comes out and she bears the gun. And before she makes the connection that he doesn't look the way he did the night before.
He's bigger.
Somehow.
He's somehow
bigger.
Which is so horrible.
Yeah.
Like you go to confront your rapist and he's bigger.
And she shoots him twice in the shoulder and in the throat and in the head. And he falls out of the truck, and she comes around and realizes that it is not the same man.
Despite the fact that he's wearing the same cap, the ring on his finger, all that.
It's funny because she immediately feels remorse. It's like, don't, because that.
Well,
I don't
she
know.
doesn't know yet.
I know, but I was expecting that part too. I was like, oh, of course he's involved somehow. We don't know that at this point, but in the movie, I like how they show this scene because everything happens. He pulls up, and in a flash of what she imagines she's gonna do, she very quickly rushes him as he's getting out of his truck and just fires a bullet right through his open door windshield into his face. And so then we cut to her. And I do like, it was a nice payoff that she literally does that. And you're like, oh, she's not going to like trip on the way there or something stupid. And she shoots him. And it's just very, very quick. And I love in the book, I believe that mentions, like, I think maybe Tom excuses her, like, hey, you had PTSD. Like, you saw what your brain was telling you was happening. And in the film, it makes it very clear because it shows us, like, what she's seeing is not accurate, but it's what she's seeing as she follows through with that. It's really cool.
Yeah,
I do like that.
He's played by the guy that, like, in the very quick shots to him, we don't see his face, but it is clear enough that it is the guy that did it. But then when he's on the ground, it's a different guy.
Definitely worked better, I think, in the movie.
Yeah.
So and then at this point, she basically says, well, I guess I have to kill myself after all this because I've killed an innocent person. And this is where she gets an idea that I am so bummed we lost in the movie. She takes Al's truck. It's such a smart idea because she knows driving that truck to Lester's house.
Not going to raise any red flags.
No, he's heard that. He knows the sound of that truck just as well as she does. And so she gets in his truck and makes her way over to Lester's house.
After having a conversation with the corpse.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. We skipped over. Yeah. I think they did a great job of that in the movie. And it makes more sense to have had Doreen show up to do that instead of it being her cat.
You know, I kind of wish they would have done it American Werewolf in London style.
Oh, yeah.
Where all this family's like following her around, rotting.
Yeah, that would be cool.
All the voice stuff could have been a million times better. Because it was the most interesting part of the book.
I think so, yeah. So she goes to Lester's house and finds him having finished the last of his beers. He's actually, as she walks in, he's like, you shouldn't have come here for a beer because I've drank all of them. He's just watching TV in his underwear. And she walks and pulls a gun on him. And the way it describes his reaction, I don't know what I was hoping for, but the way he legitimately looked like he'd seen a ghost, the way it's described, it was really satisfying.
It broke the tension for me in a way that I appreciated, not in a bad way, because in reading this is a very stressful scene because things didn't quite go as planned with the other two. And so you're worried, like, is he going to surprise her and get the upper hand? Is she going to be okay?
That just shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
Quick. And that is it's the Margaret White effect. Not painful enough. Like the payoff for, we talked about the rape revenge formula earlier, and it is the valley you put your protagonist through equals the severity that you finish the attacker with.
Yeah, we don't get that. The way we get that is that she takes out the family.
Yeah, that's true.
That's sort of the trade-off.
It's another reason why this book, this story grosses me out super bad is, as far as I know, like the tropes I'm aware of in revenge stories is the most common one is revenge is bad. Revenge destroys a part of you. Like whether it is justified or not, seeking revenge it kills a part of your soul. And in this part, it's like her killing the brother, the wrong guy, is her being like, oh, I let this revenge drive me to do this awful thing. But then she goes and checks, and no, she was totally right. She totally should have killed that guy, and everything's fine. Revenge is great. And I'm like, what?
You need to watch the Death Wish movies with Charles Bronson. Revenge movies, you'll like them.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
So then she does something very confusing. She writes a confession.
Okay, thank you. I was confused by that too. At first, I was like, oh, is she
I thought it was a fake one. Yeah.
Like from him, but how does she know what his handwriting looks like?
Yeah.
I bet you 100% their handwriting wouldn't match.
It's a good bet.
Call it a hunch. But she, in the end, decides to burn it and not turn herself in.
Oh, yeah, because in the book, this is where Tom and Doreen...
No, in the book, it's always Fritzy.
Fritzy.
Even though Fritzy's not around.
Somebody's telling her that, like, don't write this thing. Don't leave this. They were all in on it.
Right.
Go check out the house. Also get your shit, because where is it?
Well, that's the other thing. The plan is so dark. I'm going to write this confession, go back to the store where the attack happened and kill myself there.
Ugh.
Like, it's
Dark.
yeah, it's a real dark. But then so she changes her mind, then she decides she's going to go do it in the truck. And that's when Tom talks her into just do a little more checking. Like, what harm is it? Go back inside. And so she does, goes to Al's house, and we find, because we still haven't found her purse. I've found everything else. And she finds out that the dog barking is very cute, very nice.
I'm glad there's no dog trauma. Surprised.
Yeah, we didn't have to kill a dog.
No, but it does do the, like, this fucking dog does bits. And it's like, this is not the time.
And turns out that Al has trophies from the crimes also, including one that implies a child victim, which was difficult. Next morning, which I thought we've killed everybody, we're done. I wasn't expecting this extra chapter with Tess and Betsy. She calls Betsy to meet her for lunch. What was that conversation?
Not as upsetting or not as impactful when delivered by professional actress Joan Jett.
She did her best.
Listen, Joan Jett's cool as shit.
She really is.
But the gravity of this monologue that she delivers at the end of the book, she's not up to it. She tells, because Tess goes to her and is like, hey,
You're my loose thread.
You're my loose thread. Here's everything. This awful thing happened to me, and I killed a bunch of people about it. And Betsy is like, yeah, all right, never come here again. Have a good life. And she's like, okay, cool.
But Betsy shares
a really, really traumatic story that I don't want to repeat because it's gross.
Yeah, Betsy also experienced trauma as a child, and so she can relate to, like, very severe. She can relate to what Tess is going through. And
which involved getting her eye stabbed out, which is why she has the two different shades of eyes. Which I also thought was strange that, like, she didn't notice the fake.
One didn't move.
Yeah, like somebody having two different shades of eyes is one thing, but I think I've always noticed when someone had a fake eye when I was talking to them.
Me too. I haven't noticed when people are like 9 months pregnant, but I do notice weird eye stuff.
Weird eye stuff. I also feel like in the movie we get this scene right when she picks up her car from the bar. And it just felt so forced.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if I felt that way because I'm anticipating this as the wrap-up scene because we get it at the end of the book or the story. But yeah, we get that when she picks up her car. Betsy pops out her eye and gives her a brief story about what happened. And so Tess doesn't tell her, because she hasn't killed anybody yet. Yeah, it felt like a weird forced insert.
I understand the instinct to not slow down the movie by putting that at the end, because it would have just killed the momentum of the movie. And it gave us the ability to do that last quick scene where it's Betsy calling and being like, I know what you did. Nice.
Which tonally, right on.
Exactly. Like, I get that they wanted to make sure we got that loose thread. I didn't need that in the movie.
Yeah.
And I also didn't need her speech in the movie because it feels so forced.
Why would she tell her that? Nothing happened for her to tell her that.
Well, the way it happens, like she's literally, Tessa's walking to her car.
Yeah, she's almost gone.
And Betsy
she's like,
walks
hold on.
out and starts this conversation, then sits down. And there was a piece of me that kind of wanted the shot from Tess to be like, look back to her car and then look back to, I'm like, oh, I guess we're sitting. Because like this conversation could have happened inside if it's.
It's like when you get into a conversation with a stranger and they don't stop talking and you have to make that choice of just leaving or staying forever.
I bet you anything it had to do with Joan Jett's scheduling conflicts filming.
Oh yeah, for sure. She was on set for one day. Yeah. So yeah, that's the pre-credit scene. But how did you feel about the real end of the movie where after all of the horrific events of this movie, Tess sits down with her old lady ghosts. The old lady ghost is like, sometimes it's all about kicking butt.
That's Lifetime. That's Lifetime.
I feel like that slowed down the movie the way they probably thought the scene with Betsy would have. But the scene with Betsy actually meant something. Yeah, I was going to ask you if that was
Yep.
Lifetime, because it's like, oh, well, let's wrap it up in a nice, neat bow, and everybody's happy, and we've got that
we need a joke to go out
orchestral,
on.
like,
Yeah,
music.
there has to be an uplifting, like, though most of the 90% of those movies you have to leave the tone the ending has to be is, and nothing bad ever happened again.
Why
Is
would you
always-
do a Steve? Okay, anyway, I'll continue.
We discussed in the movie the trouble. We discuss anytime a book has heavy internal monologue and there's a film adaptation about how they handled it. We've talked a lot about the moments. Overall, how do you think they handled the intense amount of internal monologue in the book moved to screen?
I think the plan on paper to handle it was a good idea. I think, Ben, kind of as you mentioned, the execution of it didn't quite work and they needed to modify it and just went with it. I liked the ideas that you posed that would have worked better and kind of use that same format. So I don't disagree with what they wanted to change and kind of how they wanted to deliver that. I just don't think they pulled it off for me.
I think it was just bad writing. It's bad writing and bad ADR. It's
Definitely bad
rough.
ADR for sure.
There's a scene where Ann Dowd's character, it's right at the beginning of the movie and she's leaving to go on the shortcut. There is footage of Tess driving down the highway with Ann Dowd talking over top of it. And she's giving the directions and it ends with Ann Dowd laughing. And the laugh is obviously a completely different recording.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is.
it pulls you out.
Yeah.
Imagine this. Tess is distraught. She's beaten, broken, bruised. She's in her home. And where we're introduced to her knitting society, being sort of these like visions and people talking to her, standing around her, and with the energy and tone of like the sisters in Lisi's story when they all decide what they're going to do about Dooley, they are egging her on to, well, you're going to have to kill him, right? And they're like just these old ladies who are knitting, but like you could do stuff with the lighting and framing and everything to make them seem very menacing.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, Lizzie's story. Anyway.
But I mean, like having that darker edge with them too would have been a really neat way to use them, visually to show that monologue.
Yeah.
It's time to do some ratings.
Yeah. For the book, hated it. I did not enjoy a single second of reading this story. It made me feel very bad the whole time. I did not like, I can't even speak. I came in today, I was like, I don't have anything to say. This is going to be a not fun episode. Nastier than the nastiest of the Bachman books that we've read so far.
Interesting.
Did not enjoy 1 out of 5.
Oof.
Did not.
Fair
like-
enough. Yeah. When it's not your jam, it's not your jam. For me, like I said, I'm a fan of this genre. I do think I was thrown a few times, like Ben and I discussed, of the leaps she made and the directions I thought it was going to go and that it didn't go. I'm going to go 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
I also did not enjoy reading this. It's unpleasant. It's well done, I think. It was an interesting story. I liked a lot of the things that King did with it. Just not something that I would probably myself revisit or read again. 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
All right, let's talk movie. See, I'm going to go first on movie.
Oh my God, okay. I don't want to be overly negative because people worked on this. They worked so hard and I'm happy for them. It was not for me. I don't think like Lifetime Hallmark movies are going to be for me anyway. I think it was a poor choice as a horror fan and a King fan to use that to deliver this to us. And so if listeners out there, are more like Josh and do watch those networks and enjoy that, you might like this just fine. It might be a nice way for you to watch a revenge movie and not have to watch, that kind of revenge movie. But I will never watch this again. 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Ben? Ann Dowd.
Ann Dowd's great. This might be my new least favorite movie I've ever watched in my life.
Wow.
That's not.
Worse than
You've
Cell?
seen garbage.
Oh, I mean, Cell is bad, but I don't find it repulsive.
I'd rather watch that opening.
I would rather watch Cell
Careful.
than this. It is, like I said, I'm sorry to the people that made this. They're never gonna listen. It is artless. It is soulless in the way that these like cheap cable TV made for TV movies are. And the subject matter is so intense that it is not earned by the acting, writing, directing. There is nothing interesting enough going on in this movie to make it worth watching a 3-minute long scene of this dude crouching over this woman. I hated it. 0 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Wow.
Gross.
It was all right. So the credit I will give to it is, I don't know whose call this was. I don't know how this movie came down the pipeline, but kudos to whoever at Lifetime for taking a stab at a Stephen King property with a practiced format that they have. It's an interesting way to make Stephen King accessible to an audience that I think wouldn't normally find Stephen King. So there's a chance that as terrible as it is, this movie might have made new Stephen King fans. And that's the only reason it's getting a 2 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
Oh my gosh, I rated it higher than you.
It's so bad. There were moments I definitely enjoyed. Like I enjoyed, I think my favorite scene that I will take away from this is Al's death. I loved how breakneck pace that was, and then caught you by surprise with the regret, even though as someone who read it, I knew the twist. There were moments of promise that, man, if they'd done it more than twice in 90 minutes, could have been an okay movie.
And that is it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episodes where we will be covering the story Fair Extension. For Joshua Kahn and Benjamin Graham, I'm CM Alexander, reminding you, you like it, it likes you. Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Full Dark No Stars, Episode 2. We hope you liked it. As always, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Derry Public Radio and X at Derry Public. You can also send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our Etsy store for cool merchandise, etsy.com/derrypublicradio, and our Patreon for bi-weekly bonus episodes, including a backlog of so many episodes that you guys should check out. You can get those at the $5 and up tier. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.